Have you ever thought about picking up a plain rock from the ground, breaking it open in the middle, and finding a precious stone inside? Well, here is an example. The stone on your screen right now is a diamond valued at millions of dollars. That same diamond was found in nature by a child who was playing near an abandoned mine. And just like every diamond, it's been thousands of years locked inside a volcanic rock. It stayed there until the forces of nature broke that rock apart and freed the diamond from within it. And this happens with all of the major valuable gems found in nature. These rocks with precious stones inside of them are known as host rocks or matrix rocks. In other words, if you know how to identify them, you can find a precious stone inside them. And that is exactly what you are going to learn right now. You are going to learn how to tell which plain rocks are hosts to precious stones in nature, so that you never throw away something valuable. The first thing you need to accept is that a host rock almost never announces what it carries. The outside is plain and dusty, the same color as everything around it. The valuable material sits locked somewhere inside the body of the stone. So, the skill you are building today is not about spotting a gem on the surface. It is about learning to read the rock itself, because the rock is the clue, and the gem is the reward hidden behind that clue. Every gemstone forms under a specific set of conditions, and those conditions leave a fingerprint on the rock around it. Temperature, pressure, and the chemistry of the fluids moving through the ground all shape the gem and its host at the same moment. When you understand that connection, a pile of ordinary stones stops being random and starts being a map. You begin to know which rock is empty and which rock deserves a second look.
There are 4 big families of host rock you will run into when you walk through nature in the United States, and each one carries a different set of gems. Before you ever swing a hammer, you want to do a calm visual reading of the stone in your hand, and that reading follows 4 quick observations. The first observation is grain size. A rock made of large, easy-to-see crystals formed slowly and deep. And slow formation is exactly what gems need. A rock made of tiny, uniform grains formed fast, and fast formation rarely leaves room for a gem to grow unless that rock has cavities. The second observation is the color pattern. Even bands, sharp contacts between light and dark zones, and pockets of a different texture are all signs that something interesting happened inside that stone. The third observation is weight, and weight tells you more than people expect. Many host rocks that carry gems also contain heavy minerals, so a stone that feels heavier than it looks is a stone worth examining. The fourth observation is texture, felt with your thumb across any broken face. A glassy and smooth surface points toward quartz and silica-rich zones. A rough, sandy feel points toward a plain rock with little promise. None of this requires a tool. All of it takes seconds, and all of it happens right where you found the stone. There is one more idea you need before we go into each rock, and it is the most useful idea in this video. Weathering is your free mining crew. Rain and frost and heat and gravity attack every exposed rock for thousands of years. They crack the host apart and they release the gem that was locked inside. The gem is harder and tougher than the rock around it, so the gem survives while the host slowly turns to sand. That means many of the stones you want are already loose, already separated from the host, waiting in the gravel below. Now we go into the first and richest host rock, and this is the one that gives back the most when you learn to read it. Pegmatite is a coarse-grained igneous rock, and the easiest way to recognize it is by the size of its crystals. Most rocks are made of grains too small to separate with your eye. Pegmatite is the opposite. It is built from crystals that can be the size of a fingernail, or in extreme cases, an entire arm. It looks like a normal granite that someone magnified. The body of a pegmatite is mostly pale,
You will see milky white to soft pink feldspar, glassy gray quartz, and thin sheets of mica that catch the light like tiny mirrors. That pale, coarse texture is the signature, and once you've seen it 3 or 4 times, you'll never confuse it with anything else. When you find a fragment of light-colored rock with big, separated crystals, your attention should sharpen immediately. Pegmatite is the single most reliable gem host you can find while walking in the United States. The reason pegmatite is so generous comes from how it forms. It is the very last liquid to cool inside a much larger cooling magma body, and that final liquid is loaded with rare elements and dissolved water. Those leftover ingredients are exactly what gem crystals need, and the slow cooling gives them the time and the space to grow large and clean. So a pegmatite is the final concentrated leftover of a far bigger process, and that leftover is where the treasure collects. The first gem you are hunting inside pegmatite is tourmaline. In the rock, tourmaline shows up as a long, straight crystal, shaped like a column or a rod. The surface of that column carries fine grooves running along its length, like the ridges on a pencil. Those grooves are a reliable signature because few other minerals in a pegmatite wear that grooved skin. The color ranges from deep black to dark green to blue-green. In the best pegmatites, it reaches pink and even crystals that carry 2 colors in one piece. Maine and Southern California built their gem reputation on exactly this material, and many of those crystals came out of plain pale rock that nobody else looked at twice. The second gem inside pegmatite is beryl, and beryl is the parent mineral of both emerald and aquamarine. Here, it appears as a 6-sided column, a hexagon if you look at it and on. The colors run from pale blue-green to soft yellow to the clean sky blue of aquamarine. The flat hexagonal cross-section is the giveaway because almost nothing else in a pegmatite grows that precise 6-sided form. North Carolina has produced gem beryl from pockets like this for well over a century, and crystals still turn up for people who know the shape to look for. The third gem is topaz, and topaz behaves a little differently from the other two. It tends to sit inside small, open pockets within the pegmatite, rather than locked solid in the body. It forms blocky crystals with sharp, flat faces and a bright, glassy shine, and it is noticeably hard. The state of Colorado, with its well-known topaz localities, has handed clean topaz crystals to ordinary collectors who only needed to know which pale rock to split. This brings up the most important habit for pegmatite. The valuable crystals very rarely sit in the solid, even part of the rock. They concentrate inside what miners call pockets, which are open cavities lined with the best crystals the pegmatite ever grew. From the outside, a pocket zone shows as a place where the texture changes, and the crystals get suddenly larger. There is also a faster way to screen pegmatite without breaking anything at all. Walk to the base of any slope or road cut where pegmatite is exposed, and study the loose gravel that has collected there. Years of weather have already broken these rocks down and washed the freed crystals downhill. A loose tourmaline rod, a broken hexagon of beryl, or a glassy chunk of topaz often waits in that gravel. It sits there, separated from its host, asking only to be noticed by the right eye. Let me give you the field test for pegmatite gems, all of them done with objects you already own. The first test is hardness, and hardness is the fastest way to separate a real gem from a soft, worthless mineral. A simple steel knife or a nail scratches at about 5.5 on the mineral hardness scale. An ordinary window glass sits near 5.5 as well. Quartz reaches 7. Tourmaline, beryl, and topaz all sit above quartz. So if your crystal scratches glass with ease and resists a steel blade completely, you are holding something in the gem range. If a knife bites into it without effort, you can set it down and keep walking. The second test is the crystal shape itself, and shape is a test most beginners ignore. Natural gem crystals grow in geometric forms. Tourmaline gives you that grooved column, beryl gives you the hexagon, and topaz gives you blocky shapes with flat mirror faces. When a stone shows clean, repeating geometric faces, those faces were built by an orderly internal structure, and that orderly internal structure is the definition of a true crystal. A shapeless lump is far less promising than a stone with honest edges.
The third test is luster, which simply means the way the surface handles light. Hold the crystal and tilt it slowly under the sun. A bright, glassy reflection, almost like the shine of a clean glass bottle, is what gem-quality tourmaline returns to you. A dull, chalky, or greasy surface points toward common minerals. With practice, your eye reads luster in a single glance, and that glance alone saves you from breaking rocks that were never going to pay you back. One more thing about pegmatite deserves a sentence, and that is the company these gems keep. A pegmatite that grew gem tourmaline very often grew gem beryl in the same pocket, along with other interesting minerals. So finding one good crystal is rarely the end of the story. It is a signal that the same outcrop can hold a whole set of valuable stones, and that single outcrop is worth returning to.
The pale, coarse pegmatite is only one door. Now we move into the second great family of host rock, the layered metamorphic rocks called schist and gneiss. And these two rocks carry a completely different set of gems. They form when older rock is buried deep and squeezed under enormous pressure and heat. That squeezing rebuilds the rock from the inside and grows brand new crystals within it. Schist is easy to recognize once you know the trick. It splits into thin, uneven sheets, almost like the pages of a thick book. Across those sheets, you see a heavy sparkle of mica, like thousands of tiny metallic flakes catching the light at once. Gneiss is a close relative, but instead of splitting into pages, it shows wide alternating bands of light and dark color. Gneiss also stays solid and blocky rather than flaky. Layered and sparkly means schist, and banded and solid means gneiss. The headline gem inside both of these rocks is garnet. And garnet is the easiest gem in this entire video for an ordinary person to recognize. It grows as a rounded ball, very often covered with many small flat faces. It sits embedded directly in the sparkly host like a marble pressed into clay. The color runs from deep red to wine to a reddish brown. In a silvery mica schist, those dark rounded knobs stand out clearly against the pale background. And once you have seen one, you'll spot them from several steps away. The Appalachian Belt runs from Georgia up through the Carolinas and into New England. That whole belt is full of garnet-bearing schist, and a great deal of it is open to anyone hiking through it. Garnet is also tough. It sits near or above quartz on the hardness scale, so it scratches glass without trouble. And that single test separates a real garnet from soft red minerals that only pretend to be gems. When you find a rounded, deep red crystal with many faces locked in a sparkly, layered rock, you almost certainly have garnet. The larger and cleaner that crystal, the more a cutter would want it. There is a second clue with garnet that is worth knowing. As the shift around it weathers and crumbles, the garnet stands harder than the host. It often sits slightly raised on the rock face as a small bump that survived while the softer host wore away. Running your fingertips lightly over a weathered schist surface can find garnets your eyes might miss. Schist and gneiss carry a second gem that fewer people know, and that gem is kyanite. Kyanite forms long, flat-bladed crystals, shaped like a thin blade or a flat splinter. Its color is a clean blue, sometimes pale and sometimes a deep steely blue. It grows in aluminum-rich schist, and it stands out sharply because that blue is uncommon in nature. Kyanite has one famous quirk that doubles as a field test. It is soft along the length of the blade and noticeably harder across it. A steel blade will scratch it in one direction and slide off in the other. No other common mineral behaves that way, so that single odd result confirms the stone for you on the spot. There is one practical reason these metamorphic rocks reward patience. The crystals inside them are spread through the body of the rock rather than gathered into one pocket. So you are not hunting for a single doorway the way you do in a pegmatite. Instead, you scan the broken faces and the weathered surfaces across a wide area, and you let the loose gravel at the base of the slope do half the work, because freed garnets collect there in numbers. Not every garnet in a schist is worth keeping, and knowing the difference protects your time. A great many garnets are small, cloudy, and full of internal cracks. Those have value as mineral specimens, but not as cut stones. The garnet a cutter wants is larger, its color is even and deep when you hold it to the light, and its body is reasonably clear rather than fogged through and through. So when you find a garnet-bearing schist, you do not stop at the first crystal. You work along the rock, and you check the gravel below. You compare what you find, because among many ordinary crystals, there is often one with the size and the clarity that lifts it into gem grade. Now we leave the layered rocks behind and move to the third family, the dark volcanic rock called basalt. And basalt hides its gems in a completely different way. Basalt is dark gray to black, and its grains are so fine that you see no individual crystals at all on a fresh face. By itself, the solid basalt is empty of gems. The treasure is in the holes. When the lava cooled, trapped gas left rounded cavities behind. Over thousands of years, mineral-rich water seeped into those cavities and slowly filled them. That slow filling is how a geode forms. The water lines the cavity with layer after layer of silica, and the result is a rounded brown lumpy nodule that looks completely ordinary from the outside, almost like a dirty potato. Inside, that same nodule can be lined with purple amethyst crystals or packed with clear quartz points. It can also be filled with a smooth, curved color banding of agate. The contrast between the plain shell and the bright interior is the whole reason this video exists, because nothing about the outside warns you what is waiting within. So in basalt country, your eyes change what they hunt for. You stop looking for crystals and you start looking for rounded, fist-sized lumps that look different from the angular, sharp-edged basalt fragments around them. A geode often feels surprisingly light for its size because the interior is partly hollow, and that lightness is a clue you can read before you ever break it. When you tap two suspected geodes together, a hollow one gives back a slightly lighter sound than a fully solid rock. The Pacific Northwest, and Oregon in particular, is well known for basalt that holds agate and amethyst this way. Not every cavity in basalt filled with the same material, and learning the difference saves you from breaking the wrong nodules. Some cavities fill completely solid with banded agate, and those feel heavy and dense in the hand. Others stay partly open and grow a crystal lining, and those are the true geodes, lighter for their size. A third kind fills with a soft, pale, chalky material that is common opal, worth far less than agate, but still a signal that silica-rich water passed through. When you sort a slope of basalt nodules, you are really sorting by weight, keeping the light hollow ones and the dense banded ones. There is one more gem tied to dark volcanic rock, and that is peridot. Peridot is an olive green to bright lime green crystal with a clean, glassy shine. In certain volcanic areas, it shows up as small green grains scattered through the dark rock or freed into the soil just below it. Arizona is the best-known source in the country, and the green is so distinct against the black host that the grains almost seem to glow when the light catches them. Peridot is also softer than quartz, so a quartz point will scratch it, and that gentle test separates a true peridot grain from harder green lookalikes. The fourth and final host family is the Skarn, also called a contact zone, and this is the one most beginners have never heard of. A skarn forms in one very specific situation, where a body of hot igneous rock pushed its way into limestone or marble. The intense heat and the chemical exchange at that boundary rebuilt the rock into something new. And that rebuilt boundary zone is unusually rich in gem minerals. You recognize it as a patchy pale or greenish rock sitting right at the line where a dark intrusion meets a light carbonate rock. Where you see two very different rocks pressed together with a strange altered zone between them, you are looking at a contact, and contacts are worth your time. The skarn often gives you a few green minerals that act as a signpost, even before you find the gem. A bright apple green mineral scattered through the contact zone and a glassy pale green crystal mixed into it are common companions of the gem minerals here. You do not need their names. You only need to register that an unusually green patchy rock sitting on a contact between dark and pale rock is a high temperature zone, and high temperature zones are exactly where the valuable crystals grow. The Skarn carries two gems worth your full attention. The first is spinel, which grows as a small, well-formed crystal shaped like an 8-sided diamond, a shape called an octahedron. Its colors range from red to pink and from deep blue to black. Spinel is hard, well above quartz, and that hardness combined with the clean octahedral shape identifies it. There is a useful extra test for the dark ones, because black spinel can be confused with magnetite. A magnet pulls strongly on magnetite, but a magnet barely reacts to spinel, so a small magnet settles the question in a second. The second gem from the Skarn is a gem variety of corundum, which is the mineral behind both ruby and sapphire. Where aluminum-rich rock met marble under heat, corundum can form. It appears as rounded or barrel-shaped crystals set in a pale matrix. The crystals show a faint 6-sided outline in red or pink or blue tones. Corundum gives you the single strongest field test in this entire video, and that test is hardness. Corundum sits at 9 on the hardness scale, and only diamond is harder than that. It scratches glass and quartz and steel and the knife blade with complete ease. Almost nothing you carry in your pocket can scratch it back. So when a heavy, rounded, reddish crystal shrugs off every scratch test you throw at it, you are very likely holding ruby or sapphire material, and that is a moment to slow down and pay full attention. Marble itself, the pale rock that the Skarn forms against, deserves one short mention because it is a gem host in its own right. Marble is pale, often white or gray, with a faint sugary sparkle on a fresh break. It can carry crystals directly in its body, with ruby the most valuable of them. A rounded red crystal sitting inside a clean, sugary white rock is the picture to keep, and then we leave marble there and move forward. Now I want to tie all 4 families together with the loose gravel idea, because this is the shortcut that makes everything faster and saves your hands a great deal of work. You do not have to break every host rock you find. Nature has been breaking them for you across thousands of years. Rain and frost and gravity attack every one of those exposed host rocks. They crumble the host apart, and they free the gems locked inside. Those free gems are harder and tougher than the rock around them, so they survive while the host turns to sand. They collect at the bottom of slopes and in roadside gravel and in dry creek beds. And here is the part that connects everything you have learned today. Whether the gem is still locked in the host rock or already freed into the gravel, the same 3 tests answer the question for you every single time. Hardness, tested against glass and a steel blade, tells you whether the stone is durable enough to be a real gem. Crystal shape, the geometric faces and the repeating forms, tells you whether the stone grew with the orderly internal structure that defines a true gem. And luster, the way the surface returns light under the open sun, separates the bright glassy gems from the dull common minerals. 3 tests, 4 host rocks, and a whole country of opportunity under your feet. There is a layer of reading that separates a beginner from someone who comes home with stones, and it has nothing to do with the rock type. It has to do with the condition of the rock surface in front of you. The same host can show you 2 completely different faces, a fresh face and a weathered face, and each one tells you something the other cannot. A fresh face is rock that broke recently, exposing the unaltered interior. It shows the true color, the true sparkle, and the sharp grain of the host. A weathered face is rock that has been exposed to rain and air for a long time. It is usually duller and browner on the surface because the chemistry has been slowly attacked. You want both. The fresh face gives you the honest identification, so you can be sure whether you are holding pegmatite or schist or basalt.
The weathered face gives you the gems because weathering is the process that loosens and reveals them.
This is why a road cut is such a productive place to search. When a road is carved through a hillside, the cut exposes a tall wall that mixes both kinds of surface. Deep in the wall, the rock is fresh and unaltered. Along the outer skin and at the base, years of weather have already gone to work. You read the fresh part to confirm the rock, and you search the weathered part for the loosened crystals. A natural cliff, a stream bank, or a gully cut by erosion gives you the same mix of fresh and weathered rock for free. There is a specific signal in weathered rock that points straight at hidden gems, and it is worth training your eye for. When a host rock weathers, the soft minerals decay faster than the hard ones. So on an old, worn surface, the hard gem crystal often stands proud, raised slightly above the crumbling host. The soft matrix around it has sunk and worn away. A small bump on a weathered face, a knob that survived while everything beside it eroded, is a crystal asking to be checked. Light raking sideways across the surface, the kind of light you get early or late in the day, throws shadows off those bumps and makes them easy to catch. There is also a color signal in weathered rock, where iron-rich minerals break down. They stain the surrounding rock in rust browns and reddish tones. That staining is not random. It marks zones where the chemistry was active, where fluids moved, and where gem minerals had reason to form. A pale host rock crossed by rusty staining is showing you the path the mineral-rich water took. A basalt with cavities ringed in orange is showing you the same thing, and that path is the path to the gem. Now, let us talk about actually opening a host rock, because doing it wrong destroys the very thing you came for. The goal is never brute force. A heavy, careless swing shatters the gem inside along with the host, and a cracked crystal loses most of its value. The goal is controlled, patient splitting that follows the natural weakness of the rock.
Start with rock that is already partly broken, because that rock will open along lines that are halfway done. Look at the host for natural seams, for thin cracks, and for the layering in schist. Place your strikes along those features rather than across them. A schist wants to split along its sheets, so you work with that grain. A geode in basalt is best opened by scoring a line all the way around the nodule with light, repeated taps. You slowly weaken the whole circle, and then you give one firm tap to part it cleanly into two halves. That scoring method protects the crystal lining inside. For a pegmatite pocket, the rule is to slow down the moment the rock changes texture. When your hammer moves from solid pegmatite into softer clay-rich pocket material, you stop swinging and switch to gentle work because the best crystals are right there and they are fragile. Many collectors finish a pocket with nothing more than their fingers, a small tool, and water to wash the clay away. They lift loose crystals out one at a time rather than breaking through them.
Two simple pieces of protection make all of this safer. Eye protection matters every time a hammer meets stone because rock chips fly fast and sharp. Gloves save your hands from the cut edges of freshly broken rock. Neither one is expensive, and both let you work calmly instead of flinching, and calm work is accurate work. There is one more habit that costs nothing and pays often, and that is wetting the stone. Dust and a dry crust hide color, luster, and translucence. A splash of water or even rubbing the stone clean against your sleeve brings the true surface back. Many crystals that look like dull gray nothing on a dry roadside reveal a glassy shine and a real color the moment they are wet, and that is the difference between keeping a gem and tossing it back. Finally, think about where you point all of this. The richest ground is ground where the geology has already been proven. Areas with a history of old mines, abandoned diggings, or known collecting localities are areas where the host rocks are confirmed gem producers. The surrounding hills, creeks, and road cuts share that same geology. You are not gambling on a random hillside. You are reading rock that the land itself has already shown to be generous, and you are simply looking where most people walk straight past. And here is one last detail that can change the way you look at the ground from now on. There is a gem that was not the focus of this video, but that shows up in exactly the same environments you have learned to recognize. That gem is the emerald. The emerald is a green variety of beryl, and it forms when those mineral-rich fluids meet rocks that contain chromium or vanadium. This often happens along the boundary between pegmatites and dark schists. In other words, under the right conditions, the same host rock that holds aquamarine can be holding an emerald. And that shows you that the world of host rocks is larger than any single video can cover. The more you walk through nature, the more you notice that every host rock carries clues to other valuable stones forming right beside it. Learning to identify one family of rocks opens the door to a dozen different gems at the same time. And that is exactly why it is worth going further than what fit here. That is why I gathered all of this knowledge into one complete training. It was made for anyone who wants to learn how to identify precious stones in nature with simple home tests, without professional equipment, and without complicated language. It is the natural next step for anyone who watched this far and wants to truly know what they are holding before showing it to any buyer. After all, knowing your stone is what protects you from selling something for a few dollars when it is worth far more. The link is in the description. But if now is not the right moment for that, no problem. You can keep learning for free right here. Just subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and watch the next video that is already showing up on your screen. Thanks for liking and subscribing. Good luck, Gem Hunter!